My husband flushed our wedding rings down the toilet after I asked him to open our relationship. I sat at our small kitchen table, my hands wrapped around a warm cup of coffee. Across from me, Jason scrolled through his phone, unaware of the words I was about to say, words that would change everything. I took a deep breath. "Jason," I said softly. He looked up, his blue eyes meeting mine. "Yeah?" I hesitated. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should just let things stay the way they were. But the thought of never bringing it up made my stomach twist. "I've been thinking about something," I said carefully. Jason placed his phone on the table. "What is it?" I stared at my coffee, watching the steam rise. Then, I forced the words out. "I think we should open our marriage." The air in the room changed instantly. Jason blinked, as if he hadn't heard me right. "What?" I swallowed hard. "I love you, Jason." "I do. But I feel like we've lost something. And I think if we..." He held up a hand. "Wait. Stop." His voice was firm. "Are you saying you want to sleep with other people?" "It's not just about that," I said quickly. "It's about experiences. Freedom. Maybe it could help us." His jaw clenched. "Help us?" He let out a short, humorless laugh. "Emma, we're married. If something's broken, we fix it. We don't bring other people into our bed." I felt frustration rise inside me. "It's not that simple. People do this all the time, Jason. It's not about cheating. It's about growing." Jason's face darkened. "So, what? I'm not enough for you anymore?" "That's not what I'm saying." "Then what are you saying?" he snapped. I opened my mouth, but hesitated. The truth was, I didn't know exactly what I was saying. I only knew that I felt restless, like I was trapped in a life that wasn't enough anymore. Jason pushed back his chair and stood up. "I can't believe this," he muttered. "Jason, please," I begged. "Just talk to me." But he was already walking away, his hands clenched into fists. And in that moment, I realized, I had just shattered something between us. Jason stormed out of the kitchen, and my heart pounded as I followed him. "Jason, wait." I called, but he didn't stop. He marched straight into our bedroom, his movements stiff with anger. I hesitated at the doorway, unsure whether to step inside or give him space. But then I saw him yank open the bedside drawer and grab something small and shiny. His wedding ring. "Jason, what are you doing?" I asked, my voice shaky. He didn't answer. Instead, he turned to me, his eyes filled with something I had never seen before: pain, betrayal, maybe even disgust. He grabbed my hand roughly. Before I could react, he pulled my wedding ring off my finger. "Jason!" I gasped, trying to snatch it back, but he was already walking toward the bathroom. "Jason, stop!" I pleaded, my chest tightening with panic. But he didn't stop. I watched in horror as he held both of our wedding rings over the toilet. "Jason, don't do this," I begged. "Please. Let's talk." He looked at me, his jaw tight. "Talk? You just told me our marriage isn't enough for you. So why do these rings matter?" Tears welled in my eyes. "Because they do. Because I love you, and I don't want to lose you." Jason let out a bitter laugh. "You don't want to lose me, but you want to sleep with other men?" I flinched. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like, Emma?" His voice cracked. "Because to me, it sounds like you're done with us." "I never said that," I whispered. He shook his head, his shoulders rising and falling as he took a deep breath. Then, before I could stop him, he dropped the rings into the toilet. My heart stopped. "No." I lunged forward, but before I could reach, Jason's hand slammed down on the toilet handle. I watched, helpless, as the water swirled and carried our wedding rings down the drain. It was gone. Just like that. Silence filled the small bathroom. I stared at Jason, my chest heaving. Why would you do that? I choked out. His face was unreadable now, the anger fading into something else. Something even worse. Because, he said, his voice hollow, you already threw our marriage away. I just finished the job. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I had expected him to be upset, even angry. But I never thought he would do something like this. The sight of the empty toilet made my stomach turn. It felt like more than just our rings had been flushed away. It felt like us. Jason turned away, walking out of the bathroom without another word. And I stood there, staring at the empty bowl, wondering if I had just lost the man I loved forever. The rest of the night passed in silence. Jason didn't say another word. He walked out of the bathroom, grabbed his jacket, and left the apartment. The front door slammed behind him, making me flinch. I stood there, staring at the empty doorway, my hands shaking. I wanted to chase after him, to make him listen, to take back the words that had started this whole mess. But it was too late. I sat down on the edge of our bed, staring at my bare finger. The weight of my wedding ring was gone, and the absence felt heavier than the ring itself ever had. A part of me wanted to scream at Jason for what he had done. For throwing away something so important. For making me feel like the villain. But another part of me knew the truth. I had hurt him. Deeply. And now, I didn't know if I could fix it. Jason didn't come home that night. I stayed up, curled on the couch, my phone in my hands. Every few minutes, I unlocked the screen, staring at his name in my contacts. Should I call him? Text him? Would he even answer? Hours passed. The city outside was quiet, the streets empty. At some point, exhaustion took over, and I drifted into a restless sleep. When I woke up, the apartment was still empty. My stomach twisted as I sat up. The events of last night came rushing back like a flood, hitting me all over again. I reached for my phone. No messages. No missed calls. Jason was still gone. I swallowed the lump in my throat and stood up. My head ached from the lack of sleep, and my heart ached even more. I walked to the kitchen, trying to ignore the chair where Jason had sat just yesterday, where everything had changed. The coffee pot was still half full from yesterday morning. I poured myself a cup, but it tasted bitter. I felt bitter, too. Jason had every right to be upset, but did he have to leave? Did he have to shut me out completely? Or, had I really broken us beyond repair? By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my phone and sent a simple text, "Emma, where are you?" Minutes passed. No reply. I stared at the screen, waiting. Hoping. Finally, after what felt like forever, my phone buzzed. Jason's name popped up. Jason, I need space. That was it. Just 3 words. I stared at the message, my chest tightening. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I didn't know what to say. What could I say? I wanted to tell him I was sorry. That I didn't want to lose him. That I never meant to hurt him. But I had a feeling none of that would be enough. Jason wasn't just angry. He was hurt. And hurt like that didn't just disappear overnight. I set my phone down and covered my face with my hands. I had asked for freedom. For something more. But now, all I felt was emptiness. 2 days passed. Jason didn't come home. He didn't call. The only thing I got was another short text, "Jason, I need time." I wanted to give him space. I really did. But the silence was unbearable. Every second without him in our apartment felt like a reminder of what I had done. On the 3rd day, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my keys and drove to his best friend David's house. If Jason was anywhere, it was there. David opened the door, his expression tight. He looked at me for a long moment before stepping aside. "He's in the guest room." I nodded, my heart pounding. I walked down the short hallway and found the door slightly open. Jason was sitting on the bed, staring at his phone. His hair was messy, and he looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept much either. When he saw me, his face hardened. "What are you doing here?" I stepped inside, shutting the door behind me. "We need to talk." Jason let out a short, bitter laugh. "Oh, now you want to talk?" "Jason, please." My voice cracked. "I'm sorry." He shook his head. "Sorry for what, Emma? For bringing it up? Or for wrecking our marriage?" I winced. "I never wanted to hurt you, but you did." His voice was sharp, but underneath it, I could hear the pain. "Do you even understand what you asked me? You didn't just say you wanted something more. You said I wasn't enough." "That's not what I meant." "That's what I heard." He looked away, his jaw tight. "Do you even love me, Emma?" Tears welled in my eyes. "Of course, I do." "Then why wasn't I enough?" His voice broke on the last word, and something inside me shattered. I sank onto the bed beside him. "Jason, I love you. I swear I do. But I feel stuck. Like I'm losing myself." I took a shaky breath. I thought maybe opening our marriage would help. But I see now that I was wrong. Jason was quiet for a long time. Then, he whispered, "Do you still want it?" I looked at him, my chest aching. "No," I said softly. "Not if it means losing you." He let out a shaky breath, his hands rubbing his face. "I don't know if I can get past this, Emma." Tears slipped down my cheeks. "Please don't say that. I need more time." His words felt like a knife to my heart, but I nodded. "Okay." I stood up, my legs feeling weak. I wanted to reach for him, to hold him, but I knew it wasn't the right time. I turned to leave, but before I stepped out, Jason spoke again. "I flushed our rings, Emma." His voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear it. "What does that mean for us?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I don't know." And with that, I walked away. But as I stepped out into the cold air, one thought echoed in my mind. Maybe love wasn't always enough. The apartment felt empty without Jason. The silence stretched through every room, pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't shake. I kept thinking about his last words, "I flushed our rings, Emma." What does that mean for us? I didn't have an answer. I wanted to believe we could fix things, that love would be enough to bring us back together. But the truth was, I wasn't sure anymore. A week passed. Jason still hadn't come home. His texts were rare and short. "I need space. Not ready to talk yet." I felt like I was holding on to something that was already slipping through my fingers. So when my best friend, Sarah, invited me out for drinks, I said yes. "Come on," she said over the phone. "You've been sitting at home, miserable. You need a break." I hesitated. "I don't know, Sarah." "It's just a night out," she insisted. "No pressure. No expectations. Just drinks and some fun." Maybe she was right. Maybe I needed to stop drowning in my own guilt for one night. "Okay," I finally said. "I'll come." The bar was loud and crowded, filled with laughter and music. I hadn't been out in months, and the noise felt almost overwhelming at first. Sarah handed me a drink. "Here, relax." I took a sip, letting the warmth of the alcohol settle in my chest. For the first time in days, I wasn't just thinking about Jason. And then, I noticed him. A man at the bar. Tall, dark-haired, sharp jawline. He was laughing at something his friend said, but then his eyes met mine. A slow, knowing smile spread across his face. I looked away quickly, but my heart pounded. I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't even be looking. But then Sarah leaned in, noticing my reaction. "He's cute." I let out a breath. "Sarah." "Emma, you're married, but your husband left. You're sitting at home waiting for a man who threw your ring in the toilet." Her words stung. "He's just a guy at a bar," she said. "No harm in talking." I hesitated. Then, before I could think too much, I grabbed my drink and walked toward the bar. The man turned slightly as I approached. "Hey there," he said, his voice smooth. I swallowed. "Hey." He held out his hand. "Liam." I shook it. "Emma." His grip was firm, warm. "Nice to meet you, Emma." I knew this was dangerous. I knew it was messy. But for the first time in a long time I felt noticed, and I wasn't sure I wanted to walk away. Liam was easy to talk to. Maybe too easy. He had that kind of effortless charm, the kind that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. As we talked, I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. For a little while, I let myself forget. Forget the pain. Forget Jason. Forget everything that had led me here. But deep down, I knew this wasn't real. Liam leaned in slightly, his voice low. "So, Emma, what's your story?" I hesitated. What was my story? That I had a husband who wasn't speaking to me? That I might have destroyed my marriage? That my wedding ring was somewhere in a sewer drain? Instead, I said, "It's complicated." Liam smiled. "The best stories always are." His eyes flickered to my bare finger. "You keep touching your hand. Like something's missing." I froze. I hadn't even realized I was doing it. I had worn my wedding ring for 7 years. Now that it was gone, my hand felt strangely empty, like a piece of me had been cut off. Liam waited for me to answer, but I just set my drink down and took a breath. "I should go." His brow lifted. "Did I say something wrong?" "No," I said quickly. "You're great." I swallowed. "I shouldn't be here." Liam studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Fair enough." I turned to leave, but before I could take a step, he spoke again. "Whoever he is," Liam said, "I hope he knows what he's losing." The words hit me harder than I expected. I walked away without looking back. The drive home was quiet. The streetlights blurred as I blinked away unexpected tears. I had gone out tonight, thinking maybe I needed something new. That maybe this was what I wanted. But standing there, talking to Liam, I had felt it in my gut. I didn't want someone new. I wanted Jason. Even after everything, even after the pain and anger, I still loved him. And if there was even the smallest chance of fixing this, I had to try. I parked in front of our apartment, my hands gripping the steering wheel. My heart pounded. I pulled out my phone. "Emma, can we talk? Please?" Minutes passed. Then. "Jason, come over." I inhaled sharply. This was it. A chance. Maybe our last. Jason's message stared back at me from the screen. "Come over." My hands trembled as I gripped the phone. This was it, the conversation that would decide everything. I grabbed my keys and drove to David's house. The whole way there, my mind raced. What would I say? What would he say? Was this the beginning of a second chance, or the end of everything we had built? When I pulled up outside, Jason was already waiting on the porch. His arms were crossed, his face unreadable. I stepped out of the car, my heart pounding. "Hey." "Hey," he said, his voice quieter than I expected. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The air between us felt heavy, filled with too many things left unsaid. Finally, Jason sighed. "Come inside." We sat across from each other in the dimly lit living room. Jason leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "So," he said. "Talk." I swallowed. "I know I hurt you, Jason. And I'm sorry." His jaw tightened. "Do you even understand why it hurt?" I nodded slowly. "Because you thought I was saying you weren't enough." His eyes flickered with something, anger, sadness, maybe both. That's exactly what it felt like. I took a shaky breath. "I didn't mean it that way. I never wanted to lose you." Jason exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Then why did you ask for an open marriage, Emma? Why? The question hung in the air between us. I closed my eyes for a moment before answering. Because I was scared. Jason frowned. Scared of what? Of losing myself, I admitted. Of waking up one day and realizing that I had spent my whole life being just someone's wife instead of being me. Jason stared at me, his expression unreadable. And did you figure it out? I nodded. Yes. His voice was tight. And? I swallowed. I don't want anyone else, Jason. I don't need new experiences. I just need us. He let out a slow breath, leaning back against the couch. He looked exhausted, as if he had been carrying the weight of this for too long. For a long time, he didn't say anything. Then. I don't know if I can forget this, Emma. His words hit me like a punch to the chest. I'm trying, he continued, his voice quieter now. But every time I think about it, I hear you saying we weren't enough. Tears burned in my eyes. So what do we do? I whispered. Jason hesitated. Then, he reached into his pocket. My breath caught as he pulled something out. 2 rings. Our wedding rings. I stared in shock. How? Jason let out a small, sad chuckle. I spent 3 hours with a plumber, cost me a fortune, but, he turned the rings over in his hand. I couldn't let them go. Tears slipped down my cheeks. Jason. He looked up at me. I still love you, Emma. But love isn't the question anymore. I held my breath. Then what is? He studied me for a long time before answering. Trust. The word sent a chill through me. Jason sighed. I need time, Emma. I need to figure out if I can trust you again. If I can believe that I'll be enough for you. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Then, slowly, Jason placed my wedding ring on the table between us. His meaning was clear. He wasn't saying yes. He wasn't saying no. He was leaving the choice to me. I stared at the ring, my heart hammering. This was it. A choice had to be made. I stared at my wedding ring on the table, my heart pounding. Jason was giving me a choice, but the truth was, I had already made my decision. I reached for the ring with trembling fingers. The small band of gold felt heavier than it ever had before. I want us to fix this, I whispered. I'll do whatever it takes. Jason exhaled, his gaze never leaving mine. I believe you want that, Emma. Then let's try, I pleaded. Let's go to therapy. Let's rebuild. Jason hesitated, then nodded. Okay. A flicker of hope lit up inside me. Maybe we could find our way back. Maybe this wasn't the end, but deep down, something felt off. We started trying, we went to therapy. We had long talks. We spent more time together, but something was missing. Jason was different. He still looked at me with love, but there was a distance in his eyes that wasn't there before. Some nights, I would wake up and find him staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. I wanted to reach for him, to hold him, but something told me that even if I did, I wouldn't really be able to touch him anymore. The damage had already been done, and I was starting to realize that love alone wasn't going to be enough to fix it. 6 months later, Jason came home late that night. I was in the kitchen, making tea, when I heard the door open. Hey, I called softly, hey. His voice was tired. He walked in and leaned against the counter, watching me. There was something in his expression that made my stomach twist. I set my mug down. What's wrong? Jason took a deep breath. I can't do this anymore. The words sliced through me like a knife. I gripped the counter. Jason. I thought I could move past it, he said, his voice breaking. I really did. But every time I look at you, I remember that night. I remember the way you asked for something more. And I can't stop wondering if one day, you'll feel that way again. Tears welled in my eyes. I told you, I don't want anyone else. I just want us. Jason swallowed hard. I believe you. He looked down, his hands clenched. But I don't think I'll ever believe in us the same way again. The words shattered me. I reached for his hand. Please, Jason. Don't do this. He let me hold his fingers for a moment, just a moment, before gently pulling away. I love you, Emma, he whispered. But love isn't enough. I broke, tears spilled down my cheeks as I shook my head. We can fix this. We can, Jason stepped back. I don't think we can. Silence filled the room. I wanted to scream, to beg, to hold on to him, but I saw it in his eyes. It was over, and this time, there was nothing I could do to stop it. 1 year later, I sat in a coffee shop, staring at my bare finger. The divorce had been finalized 2 months ago. Jason and I hadn't spoken since. I still dreamed about him sometimes. I still woke up expecting to find him next to me, but he was gone, and I had no one to blame but myself. I had wanted more, but in the end, I lost everything, and some mistakes could never be undone.